problem here is that we are still used to the system that we are
Yeah.
only judged by how good we are after we pass our exams,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So the core problem is that the core purpose of a teacher will tell you that my student will pass an exam. So the whole goal of the teacher is to guide the child to pass an exam.
Welcome to the Let's Talk Education Africa podcast. I'm sure with all the podcasts I've done so far, I keep on mentioning the fact that 2024 is sending me a lot of smiles and is making me meet a lot of, really exciting people who are doing some pretty awesome stuff in the education space. I seem to be, drifting towards people within the EdTech space. I keep bumping into them. And for this young man in his startup, I bumped into him at one event. It looks like I'm hunting people within the education space now. And I bumped into this rather amazing individual who is doing something, like I said earlier, pretty amazing. And it's in the EdTech space. And so I, bumped into him, got his name, got his number. And here we are today. He's going to talk about his pretty amazing startup called STEMAIDE. And they say that STEMAIDE is an EdTech startup dedicated to revolutionizing education in Africa by fostering problem-solving skills, creativity, analytical and critical thinking, and an innovative and entrepreneurial spirit in young Africans. I particularly love how they've broadened, the whole conversation and spreading it all across Africa because, well, considering the fact that the UN report says that we have such a youthful population, it is imperative that we go, all the way to make sure that we provide them with all the skill sets needed for them, to empower them to make a difference in their societies. With me in studio today is Prince Boateng of STEMAIDE Ghana. Prince, happy to have you here.
Thank you, Kwame. It's a privilege to be on this show, and I'm looking forward to an exciting conversation.
Awesome. That is really awesome to hear. So his full name is Prince Boateng Asare. People within the circle.
STEMAIDE Africa. The goal is to empower.
You are very much spot on that. Very, very spot on that. STEMAIDE Africa. Good, Prince. Really good to have you here. Exactly. I want us to go right in. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and all of that.
All right. Thank you very much for the opportunity once again. Greetings to all your audience across the African continent. My name is Prince Boateng Asare. I am the co-founder and CEO of STEMAIDE Africa. And my background comes a little bit from the field of coding or programming or software engineering all the way through to where we are now. So going back to our normal educational system in Ghana or Africa, I think there are little bit similarities based on our research of the whole educational system. So we have the lower, upper, then we move on to the secondary level and then the tertiary level. So my secondary school level, which most people talk about in Ghana, has been like bigger than our university self. So this kind of hype is there. So I studied in the engineering from the Koforidua Secondary Technical School, which is called Koforidua SecTech. And I studied auto mechanical engineering. And this will date back to when my teacher or my parents wanted me to do something around engineering. So my teachers were like, I'm very good in practical course. So then they recommended that I go to a technical school, equip my skills in the area of engineering. So one reason is that teachers are most influential factor in our career choices that we choose. They influence our parents and our parents. So I quickly went to go the sector and I studied auto mechanical engineering, right? So after that, I wanted to continue to get university tech to continue the field of engineering in tech. I applied and I couldn't go through. Reasons being that I didn't have all the science qualifications to get me to do an engineering subject coming from an engineering school, right? Mm-hmm. So biology is one of them. I didn't do biology. And so I cannot do any computer-related courses in the university because I don't have a background in the science courses. I think the issue has been resolved in a way. Now the secondary schools, they do relative ICT and all that. That would give you the opportunity to do the engineering courses in the university. Right. My time it wasn't like that. So I was so disappointed. And so I decided I'm not going to go to university again. So one morning I was there and a colleague of mine, way back in school, I'm one of the guys who do a lot of IT. We are helping teachers in their studies because I got access to the computer at a very young age, all the way to JHS2. I had a computer in the home, so I can maneuver my way around, burning CDs, playing games, copying games, and all those things. So those channeled through to the secondary school. So this colleague of mine called me. He was like, Charlie, you call your child, you get school, you tell them the ins and outs, whether they're able to continue or not. So I told him the issue, and he was like, I've heard of AITI. He used to call it Kofi Annan. So AITI is an ICT institution that is around the Osu area, around the Parliament House, which they teach ICT. So he said I could go and do something over there. If I say I'm not going to go to university again. So I picked my bag and I went there. And so I started to do a course in foundations in software development. And then I further on to do diploma in business computing, right? So I had the core understanding because I was just fascinated about how these computers work and how people are able to build apps on it that we are using. That was very young age at that time. So I had to understand how things are done behind the scenes. So right after that, I had to go and do a top up at the Ghana Technology University College, which had to do something with around the software engineering area. So I would say I'm a software engineer by profession, and I've also upgraded to understand the field of user experience design. So you ask me, I'll say that I am a software engineer by profession with a user experience design knowledge that is going to help me to build solutions that people will use or need or build solutions that will affect the life of a being with my core fundamental goal of offline first, accessibility, and also innovation. So that's a little bit about me.
Really interesting. Wow, there's a lot to unpack here, but let me start with this. So it's interesting how you started with engineering, right? It looks like all of your energies were channeled pointing to the area of engineering. And you made a point that I want to highlight about the fact that, teachers do play a very integral role in the path choices that we take, later on in life. And I like the way you spoke about it. You said, the teacher has a way of influencing your parents or making them see, your interests, the areas you are good in, the areas you are weak at, and then they sort of presents to you the options that are available based on your strength that you can explore, right? And yours became engineering. Yeah, you went down that rabbit hole. And when you mentioned that, you were trying to get into engineering school and they told you that you didn't do enough of the science courses that will make you eligible. Wow. I mean, it's good you mentioned that changes have been made, right? Because I have been in circles where we sort of had the conversation where it sort of pointed to the fact that there are some quote unquote unnecessary obstacles that are put in the way of people who are looking to explore and study certain courses, right? We sort of put quote unquote again unnecessary impediments in the way of people who are seeking to learn, want to seek knowledge in a certain specific area. I'm happy things are changing in that regard. And I'm happy and there's also the bit where, the fact that we had AITI, the Kofi Annan Center that was offering certain courses that you could, explore to sort of add value, right? Add value to yourself, study, a certain specific area that was going to add to you. Now, look at you now. You are in a different space. You are doing something. You've equipped yourself in a certain particular area, and you've gone on to really do pretty amazing things, which is really, really interesting. That's some really good stuff. So I want to take you back a bit. So with your background now after AITI, at the Kofi Annan Center, what pointed you in the direction of education?
Okay, so right after Kofi Annan ICT Center, I went to do top up at GTUC, right? And then I came back to do my national service at Kofi Annan ICT Center again, right? So that is where it all began. Okay, so we have what Kofi Annan does, they call the Innovation Week, where every single year they bring experts in different areas, both locally and also outside the country, to talk about emerging technologies, right? So that would come into play to influence what we started as STEMAIDE, right? The reason being that we had met as young students who want to see what emerging technology is all about, right? And then we came together to form a community that will allow us to talk about these emerging technologies and how they are influencing the world and Africa, and where does Africa stand in all this, right? So for so many years, we've been trying to advocate for these emerging technologies, for these new technologies, and we also rescaling ourselves in these areas. Over the years of all these things, one of the top requests to get from people, both students, professionals, parents, is training. Oh, how can my kid learn this? And how can our company learn this? And how can this person learn this? So that gave rise to what STEMAIDE, to be a core bone to impact the young generation with the necessary skills they need in order to be able to prepare themselves for the future of work and into this world. So we believe that education forms a critical role in the skills development of a country. So getting access to the right tools, the right resources, the right education that is needed in time will prepare the young generation and anyone to be able to have that skill they need to survive. I will talk about the distraction where robots and all those things, but I'm just giving the context of how we started in the area of education.
Really interesting. Really interesting. So that exposure is what gave you, an inkling into what people, especially parents and students, would be looking for. Really awesome. Really awesome stuff. And listen, to our listeners doing the listening, all of this is pointing to the fact that putting yourself out there into your areas of interest, right? It doesn't matter what it is. And this just goes for life in general, right? Just at a certain stage, you have to make the decision to sort of find out more about your passions or the things that you are interested in, and get into those spaces where those conversations are being had. Because you never know where the inspiration for the purposeful work that you might end up doing later on in life, or even immediately, might pop up. So your story is a classic example of, just getting into different spaces. Now there was some event or some seminar of sorts where they invited people within, locally. They brought people outside, and then there was the conversation about technology and the internet, etc. And then fast forward, it means that once we're having this conversation and talking about the future, definitely we need to be able to package learnings, trainings, to pass it on to people, right? To make them aware, or to make them, to give them a window to what the future is going to, to be like. This is really an amazing story. I'm really liking what I'm hearing so far. I want your take on the levels of disruption and innovation happening in the education space.
Okay. It's super crazy, right?
I like
when
that.
you go to the Western countries, the Europe and the Asian countries, right? But you don't see that kind of distraction happening here in our part of the world, Africa or Ghana, or wherever, right? But if you look at the World Economic Forum reports, it talks about the level of distraction in the sector, which has to do with the acceleration in digitalization, use of AI or robotics tools, and also the impact of COVID-19 has accelerated the development of technology in some areas, right? It means that we need to redefine how education is being transformed. If you look at countries or in the Asian countries, you see there's a level of distraction in the field of education, right? Students can be in their homes, and through the power of a headset, which we call the VR headset, they can connect to the teacher wherever they are and have their sessions, right? In Japan, something happened in Japan when the students were graduating. None of the students were at the school. They were at home, and they set up robots with the pictures on their faces. So when they mention your name, the robot will move all the way and come over to the person presenting the award or certificate to the student, and then they will take a picture. And the students will sit behind their homes and be watching it through a video feed through any medium while they're having access to it. And
Wow.
if you go to the education sector, also there are a lot of digital tools that teachers are using to understand whether a student is actually understanding what is being taught in the class.
Hmm.
Canada, for instance, have sensors and cameras all over the classroom. So based on the child's facial expression, the teacher will know whether the child understands what he's saying or the child doesn't understand, just by looking at the camera and the facial expressions. And
Wow.
this information and data is being gathered over the period, and then they can know that if this child is studying this and these are the interests, they don't have to like waste their time for the child to learn other languages or other courses. Based on the data they have on the child, they can quickly determine how the child can continue one particular course or subject. And the way education is taught in some settings in also Asian countries also, they've distracted the way classroom are being set up. So you have a whole playground where the child can be maneuvering his or her around the entire block. It doesn't have to be a physical room where they will sit down and listen to the teacher. They come in the morning, they close and go, and all those settings, right? So there are a lot of distractions happening in the educational sector, which you've not seen them happening in Africa or Ghana, right? But we believe that the way we can also distract the space is to apply the use of digital skills, technology, or solutions that will serve as a leverage to give each and every single child equal access to this distraction that is happening in the other side of the world, even though we don't have the all technologies that we can use, right? So the distraction is continuously happening, and this is based on research and also how the future of work is going to look like. So how do you prepare the young ones in those areas that when they grow up, they can be able to survive, live in the future? So there's also another report from the World Economic Forum that kids or children in school today will end up in areas where the jobs doesn't exist yet. So the children in the schools that we are teaching them now, they will finish and end up in areas where the jobs that they are looking for doesn't exist yet. So in that case, how do you prepare them to be able to prepare them for that new job that doesn't exist yet?
Hmm.
Right. So the distraction is happening, and we are finding different ways to find what education is and how we can use technology to be able to impact the way we educate the young ones in all aspects of our daily life.
Really, really interesting. I mean, with some of the examples you were given from the World Economic Forum, and I saw that video, the one that's able to pick up the child's facial expression and all of that to figure out
Mhm,
whether they're even paying attention or not. And I mean,
mhm,
whilst you were talking, I was like, "Hey, God, let Prince be calming down,"
mhm,
because I mean, I think that these are my thoughts. I think that despite the fact that we do have, increasing internet penetration, our adoption of technologies on the high on the continent, etc., there's still a slow adoption and integration, especially within the education
mhm,
space. And whilst
mhm,
you were speaking, what came to my mind was I think that most of these countries in the West, and if you like, these
mhm,
Asian countries, etc., they have created a culture that has a somewhat successful integration of technology with their day-to-day living. So they're able to infuse that in
mhm,
in every aspect of their lives, including education, right? And so
mhm,
the unfortunate occurrence of COVID, if you like, accelerated and puts them in a space where they were like, nope, we really need to step up our game and even move further, right? When it comes to our adoption and use of technology. If when you flip the coin, in Africa, Africa had a situation where there is pretty much a very slow adoption of technology and the internet,
mhm,
etc. We are having data that is supporting the fact that, as the years go by, it's increasing, it's speeding up, etc. But specifically within the context of education, that integration is still very slow, and it sort of put COVID in a position where it became the catalyst. It became that jumpstart where it sort of awakened us to the realities of the new world that was with us. It's like we had to speed up. We had to speed up and quickly find ways to find ways that leverage on technology to sort of address the issues that were popping up in the education space. Well, and I guess the hope is that we'll begin to see the urgency, and then speed up, our pace of making sure that we are at least even coming up with indigenous solutions. So like a STEMAIDE, for example, right? And I've spoken to quite a number of people within the EdTech space, right? And it's one of the things that really gets me excited. The fact that we are having a lot of indigenous local innovators who are coming up with solutions that are leveraging on tech, right? To push, to literally just push the agenda of ensuring that the sort of education system that we have, that is going to give us, that's the outcome, right? An outcome that is, a human resource that has built a certain skill set, a human resource that has built a certain value system, a human resource that has built a strong foundation as so as to put us in a position where we can develop our country and then reap the benefits of that seed that we sow, So it's really interesting.
I like your point that you raised. You mentioned the skill set. You mentioned the outcomes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You mentioned specific key indicators that we need to redefine. But the problem here is that we are still used to the system that we are only judged by how good we are after we pass our exams.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the core problem is that the core purpose of a teacher will tell you that my student will pass an exam. So the whole goal of the teacher is to guide the child to pass an exam. But the question is, we have not redefined the way education is being taught. And we cannot redefine the problem saying that it's all about exam. All these EdTech solutions that we are implementing, right? If you look at the skill, it's sort of an extracurricular activity that's going to rebuild on the skill set of the child. That is very fundamental and critical to the success of the child. And we still go back and do the exams thing, right? I'm not saying exam is not good, but I'm making the case here is that the way education is redefined, we need to redefine the way education is being taught here in Ghana. And we cannot use an authoritative body and also a scheme that determines the success of a child. You say this student is good because he or she has passed the exam. But the core fundamental is that after passing the exam, what critical skills that he has acquired or she has acquired in order to help him survive in the future? Are these skills very critical to help him survive, or they are not? And research has proven that all those skills are very important. So how do we incorporate it into it? We can use it in a way to measure the success of the child based on the skill set that we are talking about, not just writing an exams and passing the exams and that's it. Right? If you look at the educational report and you testified to the conference we went last week where the whole idea was to talk about education and their own main focus is that they measure the education success by the number of students who have passed the WASI exams. Right? But how do you go into the depth whether they have been able to acquire a specific skills? If they complete the secondary school, they have all A's and they continue to university. How is the child doing after the WASI exams? Those are the things that we need to also redefine. And we would have to rebuild the whole curriculum structure to cater for technology in it. And also the way we access them, it doesn't have to be only on exams, right? Or only on an authoritative body to identify that the child is successful for the next career or not. These are some of the conversations that we should have. And then these EdTech solutions will come in to be able to fast track or accelerate. So technology is just an enabler, or in our science area, we say a catalyst, right? So once you have that kind of structure in there, implement the technology so that it becomes easier for those information or those knowledge you want to share to be accessible, reliable, and available to each and every single child, irrespective wherever he or she finds him or herself. And that is one of the things I see that is our EdTech solutions and EdTech companies are trying to use that to break the gap in the educational sector. And we believe that is something that we should be very look at and how we can also empower these young ones in those areas of education.
You are absolutely spot on, and I think that the more and more I keep on having conversations, with EdTech, innovators and entrepreneurs, etc. There's this thing that just keeps popping up in my mind is what does the educational system, what has it been set up to achieve, right? Do we have an answer as to what outcome that we want to see in terms of our human resource in 10, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, right? And I think that's because that fundamental question has not been answered. A lot of the solutions or the policies, etc., that are coming up it's fragmentized, right? Everything is happening in silos instead of an integrated system that is going to leverage on every means and ways possible to achieve that outcome. So we are going to say maybe in 20 years, 30 years, we want to have a generation that is, very up to date with the technological skills, for example. Right. So now the question is, what policies do we implement what policies do we implement at the governmental level, right? How do we leverage on, if you like, the private sector, i.e. entrepreneurs, EdTech people? How do we leverage on tech, right? How do we structure our schools? How do we build our schools? How do we even answer the question of structuring our educational system to sort of get the outcomes that we want? And I think that answer has not been made clear. And so we are struggling. We are struggling because everybody comes up with a solution that solves a part of the problem instead of it coming together to contribute to the whole in getting the sort of outcomes that we want. So you definitely are spot on that. And I feel like until we're able to answer that question, what sort of human resource do we want to have in 10, 20, 40, 50 years? Until that question is answered, I think it's going to drag us behind a bit. We are not going to move as fast as we would want to. But anyway, these conversations are very interesting. When we jump on them, if you are not careful, we'll take the whole time. This has been good. Listeners, I really genuinely hope that you are enjoying how we are unpacking issues that are popping up within our education space. Let's get in. I think it's the perfect time to talk about the amazing thing that you are doing with STEMAIDE. Let's talk about STEMAIDE. Where did it start from? Where did the name come from? What's your mission? What's your vision? Let's unpack that.
Okay, so I think just to add up to it, that is the reason why we founded STEMAIDE, right? So these things or information, there are a lot of research reports that are coming up in the educational sector. Even if it's not in the educational sector, in the workforce, the future of work, robotics, AI, distractions that are happening, there are skills that are being generated or that are being unearthed, right? Or that have been able to let us know that because of these new technologies, we need to equip ourselves with a specific skills that will allow us to be more relevant in those areas, right? So an example is there is a driver. Before, people will study how to drive and become a driver as a profession. Now we've been able to train cars to drive on their own without a driver. So what would that driver need to do to be able to survive in an area where all cars will be driving by themselves? Then that is where you would have an education to teach the driver a new skills that the driver can survive in the area where all cars are driving themselves. So this is where STEMAIDE comes in. So as I initially stated, we started running a lot of training program as our advocacy or community engagement with people, parents, teachers, and other professionals. The top priorities we get from them is training. So now the question is, how do we package a whole solution that is going to help every single child. Because if you look at the educational sector, if you look at the educational setting that we do here, they're full of technology. I mean, you could know that a lot of people don't have that skill set in those areas, whether from the lower level all the way to the tertiary level, right? So STEMAID came up STEMAID is actually an abbreviation, right? So science, technology, engineering, mathematics, art, innovation, design, and entrepreneurship. So we've heard the buzzword of STEM, 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 and others are also advocating for STEAM. But we are advocating for STEMAID, which is a STEM educational system, which focus on science, technology, engineering, mathematics, art, innovation, design, and entrepreneurship. That's a STEMAID. So this is the education that we want to pursue and make it available to every single African child on the continent. It means that they will equip their skills in science, in technology, in art, in design, in innovation, and entrepreneurship. The basics of what? Managing their finance, money, pitching, business, innovation, problem-solving skills. These are all skills that we believe that every single child should have that skill set that will enable them to survive in the future of work and what is coming in the future that we don't even know. But we believe that if these young ones are able to equip themselves with these skills, they will survive because these are the critical skills that research has proven that these are the skills that is very prevalent in the future. And in the research showing these skills, how are we preparing the young ones to be able to do that? So our mission is very simple. We want to empower every young African child with the critical thinking skills, the problem solving skills that they need to survive in the future. And how are you going to do that? We are going to do that with subsequent tool sets or toolkits that is going to help the young one to be able to learn practical STEM education with little or no need of a supervisor or a supervision, right? So in STEMAID, we have a whole STEMAID structure which cuts across 3 sectors. The STEMAID kit, which is a toolkit that's going to equip every young one the basic skills they need in STEM. And then the STEMAID curriculum, which is a whole structure that's going to help institutions or teachers to be able to properly execute or teach STEM education. The STEMAID curriculum is a guided approach to teach STEM education. So it covers areas in the science field, in the engineering field, it covers areas in the entrepreneurship fields, innovations or design field, all coming into one. And this is targeted on schools and who want to properly execute STEM education in their schools. And then the later part also has to do with the STEMAID labs. So the STEMAID labs is also a whole science STEM lab that comes the latest equipment that the kids can have a hands-on practical sessions when they want to study practical STEM education. So the STEMAID kit, which you have the STEMAID kit, you have the STEMAID curriculum and the STEMAID lab. And our goal is to ensure that we provide accessibility, affordability, and also empower every young African child the basic skills that they need in order for them to succeed in the future and in the future of work, right? So this is also spun out to I like to give our information, the research that is being conducted and research that will usually come up and the outcome of the research. So one of the research also has to come up where they call them forum, where they talk about the 4 critical skills that are needed for the young ones in order for them to survive in the future and in the future of work. So the first one is creativity skills, critical collaboration, and communication. So creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. Now, the question is, how do we emphasize on an education system that is going to build on these 4 critical skill sets that are needed for the future and the future of work? And that is the goal of STEM. We are moving forward to achieve that particular approach with our STEM learning toolkit, our STEM curriculum, and also the STEM lab.
I mean, you're talking and I'm smiling and nodding my head because all of the things you are saying come off well thought through. You know, I'm seeing how you are moving step by step from A. There's a clear pathway to what it is that you are trying to achieve with your organization. So I like the idea of the kits, because definitely the kids are going to go into the hands of the children. You don't leave them there alone. There's a curriculum, right? So if I'm the teacher or the facilitator that is trying to pass on that knowledge, there is a clear curriculum with all the details as to how to go about even the teaching, and how to leverage on the tech to be able to pass on that necessary information that the child is supposed to have within the topic in STEM. And then number 3 is the lab. I mean, when you slapped on the lab, I said, yes, this is these people are doing, some good work. So the lab is, I have the space where everything that you need in order to effectively, impacts the child with, proper teaching and learning is available, right? All the tools are available, all the necessary things that you need is there. So once you bring the child, right, the child who is ready to learn and ready to get that knowledge, and then number 2, you put the facilities or the teacher who is going to pass on that knowledge is there, everything is at your disposal, right? It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. And your goal of trying to achieve, creativity, critical thinking, and collaboration is absolutely spot on. It's in fact what's needed to, it's the foundation that is needed to be able to transform one's life, the lives of their families, the lives of their communities, the lives of their countries, and then by extension, the continents. This is really well thought through. I'm excited, really. I'm sure you can see, but listeners, the Let's Talk Education Africa podcast promised, we truly promised that we're going to bring on people who are doing some amazing work, who have a grasp of what's happening on the ground, right? And STEMAIDE is a clear example. I am exceptionally proud of how well thought through the system is, and the vision is, and the steps that you are taking. There's no, when I was listening, it's like there's no part that is missing. As far as at least I'm listening and thinking about it, because definitely you need the kids, right? You can't have the kids alone. The kids is just one part of the tree. It's one branch of the tree, right? You need that curriculum, right? And then there's definitely the lab. Prince, this is awesome. This is really, really awesome. I genuinely do like to hear success stories. And so could you touch on, some success story, with the execution of STEMAIDE, at least in the Ghanaian market?
All right, thank you. So there are a lot of success stories,
Awesome.
all the way from the young ones all the way to the tertiary levels. And you won't believe that some of our students who have gone through school all the way to the university and graduated have never had access to a board or microcontroller before. And they are all engineering students who have gone to the school for 4 years and have not seen those physical hardwares that the teachers have been talking about all over.
And this is at the tertiary level.
And it's at the tertiary level. They're university graduates.
Wow.
And they only show them on the computer and they simulate the things on the board on the screen. And they see it. And now they have access to those hardwares. Right. So we got people sending us email that, man, after 4 years that they've gone to school, they've not used the hardware before, maybe a microcontroller before, or a board that can allow you to connect your coding and do those things. They've not used that. But they see it on the screen where they use the software to simulate them. Thanks to STEMAIDE, they now have access to the host of this board that they can tickle and do their run and tests and errors, and they see the effects happening. And it's like magic, right? We have a lot of success stories where young child or young kids, as young as 12 years, they have not had any experience before. And we take them through a training, and before they are done, they are building smart bins. Smart bins is basically a bin system that will open based on an obstacle that it detects. So when you get your hands closer to the sensor, the bin will automatically open for you. And then you dust your fish into it, and then you're good to go. Right? You have students building things like the smart tap system. And these are young children in the basic schools. So what we do is we want to really bring the creativity in the child, right? So in the STEMAIDE kit, there are a series of sensors and components, right? So the goal is to teach the child the basic components and how they work. So when you are done, You leave it to the child and you put a problem there. So the child creativity will put these senses together to come out with a project. And you'll be amazed by the way these children will think and come up with creative ideas, creative solutions to the problem that you put in place, right? So somebody has issues with the door and they don't want to open the door all the time. It's heavy. So they put a sensor there. When you get closer to the door opens for you, then you go inside. A smart car system. So these children will go through a training and that will give them, you will see the creativity mindset coming in. And so far, okay, the numbers will speak by itself. We've been able to sell over 1,000 of the STEMAIDE kits, which we
Wow.
have deployed at the region. Training currently over 5,000 students,
It's
both the
amazing.
lower primary, upper primary, JHS, all the way to the tertiary level. And then we have also worked with partners and other institutions like Kofi Annan ICT Center. We work with them. It's like they are our parents or something. So we always work with them under the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization. We work with GIFEC, where we train their center managers on how to use the STEM kit to teach the children in those various communities. The one thing about the kit is that it's very portable, right? So you pick it and you're good to go. You remember when we were in the basic schools, right? We have something we call the mathematical set.
Mhm.
So you have the math set where you do your drawings and all those things, right? So think of the STEM kit as the STEM kit by this time around for STEM education. Because you have your kit, you have your basic components where you can easily pick it up and do practical education. You don't need any other additional resources. The kits come with different components that will allow you to just pick it up, connect the wires, connect the bulb, write a code, and you are seeing the magic happening. So kids are so excited that they see this thing happening, and it's practical. So once you take the child through the basics of these components or the sensors, they understand it and they are doing their own things. They are putting them together and building their own projects that we are even amazed. So we are looking forward to also expand across the region, all over the country, and also in areas where there's little focus in those areas of the children because we want to make it accessible to every child, irrespective of wherever they find themselves. So over the course of we are in our second year, by the way, so we are early and we are pushing so much to be able to cover the whole Ghana and also the African continent with the STEM education, the STEM curriculum, and also the STEM labs.
It's wow. Amazing, amazing stuff. You know, this it's speaking, I'll tell you, one of my quote unquote selfish reasons for doing this podcast is,
Mhm.
you know, to hear other entrepreneurs in the space, right? Hear what they are going through, hear how they are going about things, hear their thinking process to the solutions that they are solving, hear their success stories. And you know, it has this interesting way of sending encouragement, sending inspiration, sending hope, you know, to
Mhm.
myself, to myself,
Mhm.
and I'm sure to my other listeners all across the world. This is truly inspiring. I mean, listeners, STEMAIDE says it's on a mission to empowering young minds with 21st century skills, entrepreneurial spirits, and the right mindset to reinvent the future. I absolutely love it. Everything about your ultimate goal has been broken down brilliantly to where I wish, listen, not that I wish, in fact, I will find your office and I'll come through and come and experiment with some of the things you're doing. Because
Sure, sure.
I
Sure.
was listening and I like how, especially with the STEMAID kits, right? It's basically all the
Mhm.
components there and you show me what each
Mhm.
of them does. So once I understand, then you leave me to come up with any solution that I want to come up with. And
Exactly. That's
yeah,
creativity.
it's listen, I'll stand on the highest mountain and continue to shout that our country, our continent is not short of brilliant people. It's not short of creative people. It's not short of innovative people. It's not short of people who can come up with the most brilliant of ideas. An example I always point to is mobile money, right? Mobile money started,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
M-Pesa, started in Kenya, and look at how it's spread across the continent, especially in Ghana and Nigeria is really
Mhm.
amazing, you know. So listen, kudos to you and the team. This is amazing.
Thank you.
I am
Thank you so
excited.
much.
You sold the story so well. I'm excited about the prospects that STEM
Thank
made,
you.
you
Thank you
know,
so
is
much
going to
for
make in Ghana and you know across the continent. I'm rooting for you all the way. So I wanted to ask in terms of costs, is this something that is expensive?
It's not expensive,
Okay.
right? The STEMAIDE kit is costing 356, yeah.
Okay.
And then once you have it, we have the training sessions where we will do a week of a training for you. And then after we do the training, you have access to yourself. If you don't want the training, the STEMAIDE kit comes with over 200 projects, spanning from the beginner to the intermediary to the advanced to the expert levels. These are carefully created projects that allows you to explore each of the senses in the STEMAIDE kit. So once you can able to read and write and understand your way around the computer, you can just buy the kit. You have access to the manual and you can start from the basic all the way to the advanced. By the time you are done, you have a vast knowledge of how these sensors works and how you can use them to build your own project and your own solutions.
So as I listen, meaning that you deal more with schools, right? You'd like to work with schools and organizations that offer training, correct?
And so we do the training for you.
Okay.
Once you
Okay.
buy the kit, we'll come and do training for you. We
Okay.
target schools.
Yes.
We target parents who are looking for something extra as an extracurricular activity for the child. And we also target organizations who are looking for to impact the less deprived areas and communities when it comes to STEM education. So like we went to work, example is Vodafone Ghana Foundation, we work with them to the other areas where we get the kids to them to be able to teach them how to have access to this accessible STEM education and others like that. So these people would want something extra aside from the normal school curriculum activities. And then this is where STEMAIDE comes in.
You've added to my hope tank. I am really excited about, the fact that there genuinely is hope for the younger generation that is popping up. The fact that there are a lot of options available. There are a lot of, carefully well thought out plans and products and resources that is going to revolutionize the way we go about impacting our societies. Because once you equip the young people with skills, you equip them with the resources, you equip them with a proper structure, with your curriculum and the labs, for example. I am excited about what we are going to see in 10 years. I want to see more Ghanaians getting into the engineering space, coming up with solutions. So, when it comes to the building of, things like bridges and whatnot, our roads, etc., we're going to have a chunk of indigents who are leading that. When it comes to coming up with, say, vaccines or coming up with products that we use on a day-to-day, that leverage on science, that leverage on technology, things are going to come up. We are going to have, if you like, our own, scientists, our own manufacturers who are coming up with, their own things. That's so it's basically going to be by Ghanaians for Ghanaians, right? Or by Africans for Africans.
Exactly.
And even and expanding Africans. It to the world. Yes. Prince, this was incredibly amazing. Thank you so much for hopping on the Let's Talk Education Africa podcast today. I wish you all the very best. I wish you and your outfits all the very best.
So much,
Thank
Kwame,
you
for the opportunity. I also like to thank you for the opportunity of giving us to your listeners. And we believe that STEMAIDE is on course and you can help us or join us on this journey. Use the opportunity to share our details where people can find us.
Yes, please.
And also follow us on the social media platforms. So the handle is at STEMAIDE Africa.
Okay.
At STEMAIDE Africa on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at STEMAIDE Africa.
Okay.
You can visit our website at www.stemaide.com, STEMAIDE.com, STEMAIDE. You can also find us on LinkedIn, STEMAIDE Africa on LinkedIn, where you can follow us and see some of our works that we do there. We also provide training programs, so you can follow us and see the next cohorts of training where we do TFTs to train people who have completed school, that we can train them to become STEMAIDE instructors so that we can put them through to schools, finding them jobs and opportunities when it comes to STEM education in Ghana. And personally, you can also follow me on LinkedIn as Prince Boateng Asare. And then let's connect and let's see how we can empower Africa.
Prince Boateng Asare, Chief Executive of STEMAIDE. Africa Limited. This has been brilliant. The education space is happy and proud to have you as a part of it. More grease to your elbows. We wish you all the very best. Continue to transform the STEM space, one student at a time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kwame.
To our listeners, this conversation had everything in it. There was inspiration, there was, deep thoughts, there was insights, there was everything. There was everything in there. And I'm sure you picked up a thing or two. And I'm sure I hope you enjoyed the conversation that we had. If you're looking to do any collaborations, they are open. STEMAIDE Africa is open to collaborations. They are open to impact as many students as possible. So this is a huge shout to all our listeners across the globe. Check them out, STEMAIDE Africa on LinkedIn. They would definitely respond to you as quickly as possible. I've tried it and I know they do. Check out Prince as well. There's so much going on in the education space on the continent and in Ghana. And I'm excited to have had this really interesting conversation with STEMAIDE Africa. And so until next episode, please look forward to more and more conversations within the education space. Stay safe, guys. Cheers.